In 1947, late at night, a banker named Andy sits in his car drinking while staring at a gun. Not long after, he is put on trial for murder. Andy explains that he argued with his wife because she wanted a divorce. However, the lawyer fills in the rest. Andy knew she was having an affair, followed her to her lover's house, and killed them both. Andy insists he was drunk and only meant to scare them, claiming he left without firing a shot. He says he threw the gun into a river, but it was never found. The lawyer points out that the weapon was fired more times than it could hold, suggesting Andy reloaded and shot multiple times. In the end, the judge sentences him to 2 life terms, 1 for each victim. At the same time, a prisoner named Red is being evaluated by the parole board. After serving 20 years of a life sentence, he claims to be rehabilitated, but his request is denied. Back in the yard, other inmates approach him asking for items, revealing that Red is known for smuggling contraband into the prison. Soon, a new group of inmates arrives, facing insults and bets from the others on who will break first. Red notices Andy among them but isn't impressed, thinking he looks weak. Warden Norton addresses the newcomers, saying the first rule is to respect the Lord, while the rest they'll learn over time. When one prisoner asks about food, Captain Byron responds aggressively, hitting him. The group is then hosed down and sent naked to their cells. That night, one of the new inmates breaks down crying. The others mock him, with Haywood pushing him further, trying to make him crack. The prisoners begin clapping and shouting insults, attracting the guards. The man insists he doesn't belong there, so Byron drags him out and beats him. Throughout the night, Red notices that Andy remains completely silent. The next day in the dining hall, Andy senses the stares and chooses to sit alone. He finds a maggot in his food, but Brooks takes it to feed a baby bird hidden in his sweater. Meanwhile, Haywood collects cigarettes after winning his bet. When Andy tries to join the group, Haywood shuts him down. Later in the showers, Boggs approaches Andy with inappropriate intentions, but Andy walks away. Over the following months, Andy keeps to himself to avoid trouble. One day, he introduces himself to Red and asks for a rock hammer. Red agrees but warns him to hide it carefully, as random inspections could ruin his smuggling business if it's traced back to him. He also warns Andy about Boggs and his gang, known as the Sisters, advising him to be cautious. After Andy leaves, Red admits he likes him. Sometime later, supplies arrive at the prison, and an inmate secretly retrieves a hidden package. Red trades cigarettes for new blankets and later finds the package containing the hammer. He sends it to Andy using Brooks's book card. That night, Boggs and his gang corner Andy, beat him and assault him. The next day, Andy shows up bruised, and everyone understands what happened. For the next 2 years, the Sisters continue abusing him. Sometimes he fights back, but most of the time he can't. In 1949, Warden Norton announces that inmates are needed for a week of outdoor labor at a factory. Many volunteer, including Red and Andy. Red arranges for his group to be selected in exchange for cigarettes. Under the intense sun, they work on the factory roof while the guards talk nearby. Byron mentions he recently received an inheritance but is worried about taxes. Andy overhears and approaches him, ignoring Red's warning. Byron gets angry and threatens him, even dragging him to the edge of the roof. Before things escalate, Andy offers advice on how to legally protect his money. Though skeptical at first, Byron agrees when Andy offers to handle everything in exchange for beers for his friends. For the rest of the week, the group enjoys cold beers at the end of each workday, though Andy doesn't drink, having given it up. Back in prison, Andy and Red play checkers. Andy says he prefers chess and plans to carve his own set. Red once again asks why he killed his wife, but Andy continues to deny it. Andy then asks Red about his crime, and Red admits that he killed someone. Afterward, Andy begins carving chess pieces in his cell. He also uses the hammer to carve names into the wall. Later, the prisoners watch a movie featuring a beautiful actress. Andy asks Red to bring her to prison, and since Red thinks he's joking, he says it might take a few weeks. As Andy is leaving, the Sisters suddenly attack him. They drag him to the projector room and force the operator out. Andy uses the film reels to defend himself and even breaks one man's nose, but they outnumber him and quickly overpower him. Boggs punches him repeatedly, then pulls out a knife and threatens him, demanding inappropriate acts. When Andy refuses, Boggs brutally beats him, leaving him in the infirmary for a month. After this incident, Boggs is sent to solitary confinement. When he returns, Byron is waiting and beats him severely. From that moment on, the Sisters never bother Andy again. Boggs is left wheelchair-bound and later transferred to a hospital. Red decides to prepare a welcome gift for Andy when he leaves the infirmary, so he asks his friends to collect rocks for the chess set. While working outside, Haywood picks up a rock, but the others laugh at him when it turns out to be petrified horse manure. When Andy returns to his cell, he finds a bag of rocks along with a poster of the actress. One afternoon, guards conduct random cell inspections. They search Andy's cell but find nothing. Norton notices Andy has been reading the Bible, and they briefly discuss their favorite passages. Although the poster isn't allowed, Norton decides to let him keep it. Later, Norton calls Andy to his office and informs him that he's being reassigned to work in the prison library. There, Andy meets Brooks and his crew. Brooks explains he's been the librarian since 1912 and has never had an assistant before. Their conversation is interrupted when a guard arrives on behalf of Byron, asking Andy for financial advice. Andy takes some paper and guides him through setting up a trust fund for his children. During lunch, Andy tells his friends that the library job is likely so he can secretly help the guards with financial matters. He mentions wanting more books, but the others doubt the warden will allow it. Andy still asks Norton, but his request is denied. So he decides to write a weekly letter to the Senate asking for books, and Norton agrees to send them. Over the next few years, Andy handles tax work for the guards, and Norton while continuing to send letters to the Senate, though he receives no response. Eventually, he arranges for Red to become his assistant in the library. In 1954, a prisoner runs to call Andy and Red because something is wrong in the library. They arrive to find Brooks holding Haywood at knife point, saying it's the only way he can stay. Andy manages to calm him down, and Brooks breaks down emotionally. Later, Red explains that Brooks has spent 50 years in prison and panicked after being granted parole because he no longer knows how to live outside. Before leaving, Brooks sets his crow free. Back in the outside world, Brooks struggles to adjust. The modern city overwhelms him, especially the traffic. He gets a job bagging groceries but can't keep up with the pace. After work, he visits the park to feed birds, but at night he struggles to sleep. After days of this routine, he carves, "Brooks was here," into a wall and ends his life. A letter from Brooks eventually reaches his friends in prison, revealing his farewell and intentions. Red reflects that Brooks might have been better off dying in prison with them. Sometime later, Andy finally receives a large shipment of used books, along with $200 from the government to support the library. Among the books, he finds an opera record and decides to play it over the prison speakers so everyone can hear it. He locks the doors to prevent anyone from stopping him. Norton arrives and angrily orders Andy to stop, but Andy ignores him and increases the volume. Byron eventually breaks in and arrests Andy, sending him to solitary confinement for 2 weeks. When Red appears before the parole board again, he says he has now served 30 years and once again claims to be rehabilitated, but his request is denied. Back in the yard, Andy gives Red a harmonica. That night, Red tries playing it in his cell while Andy hangs up a new poster. As time passes, Andy continues sending more letters to the government until they finally agree to fund renovations, just to stop his persistence. Together, the inmates transform an old storage room into a proper library, even adding music. That same year, Norton introduces the Inside Out program, where prisoners work on projects outside the prison. However, when speaking to the press, he hides the fact that the inmates are unpaid, effectively turning it into forced labor while he keeps the money. One day, a local contractor explains that he needs the new highway contract, or his business will collapse, so he bribes Norton to back off. All the financial movements during this period are recorded by Andy. In private, Andy tells Red that Norton is using him to create legal cover for these transactions. Red warns him that the paper trail could make him vulnerable, but Andy insists it won't lead back to either of them, instead pointing to a fake identity he created for this purpose. In 1965, a new group of prisoners arrives, including a man named Tommy, who is serving time for breaking and entering. During lunch, he shares many stories and quickly becomes part of Red's group. Tommy has a wife and child waiting for him, so he wants to improve himself. He asks Andy to help him learn to read better so he can attempt to earn his high school equivalency diploma. Since Andy has already completed his chess set, he takes Tommy on as his new project. After a year of effort, Tommy takes a practice test but fails to finish in time. Frustrated, he storms out after crumpling his paper, which Andy later picks up. Not long after, Tommy learns about Andy's case and is shocked. He tells Andy about a former cellmate who once bragged about killing a couple while they were together, laughing about how the husband was blamed instead. This reveals that Andy is innocent and that Tommy's old cellmate is the real killer. Desperate, Andy goes to Norton and asks for a new trial, but Norton dismisses the story as false. When Andy threatens to expose Norton's illegal money schemes, Norton sends him to solitary confinement for a month. While the inmates begin to question Andy's innocence, Tommy receives a letter from the Board of Education. Andy had secretly submitted his test, and Tommy passed with a C+, earning his diploma. That same night, Tommy is taken to the yard where Norton is waiting. Norton questions him about the story of the real murderer, and Tommy confirms it's true. Norton then orders a guard to shoot Tommy, killing him. Afterward, Norton visits Andy and claims Tommy was killed while trying to escape. Andy attempts to quit his accounting work, but Norton refuses, threatening to shut down the library and remove his protection if he does. As Andy is taken away, Norton orders that he remain in solitary confinement for another month. When Andy is finally released, he tells Red that although he didn't physically kill his wife, he drove her away emotionally, which he believes led to her death. He also shares his dream of opening a hotel in a coastal town in Mexico. Andy invites Red to join him, but Red, like Brooks, doubts he could survive outside prison. Andy then asks Red for a favor. If Red ever gets out, he should go to an oak tree in Buxton, where Andy once proposed to his wife, move a black volcanic rock, and see what's hidden underneath. Later, Red tells the others that Andy has been acting strangely since leaving solitary confinement. Haywood mentions that Andy asked him for a rope, raising fears that Andy might be planning to end his life. That night, Norton has Andy shine his shoes before sending him back to his cell. Red struggles to sleep, worried about what Andy might do. The next morning, all prisoners leave their cells except Andy. When guards check his cell, they find it empty. At the same time, Norton notices his shoes have been replaced with an old pair. The guards question Red, but he knows nothing. Furious, Norton throws a rock at Andy's poster, tearing it down and revealing a tunnel hidden behind it. The guards search the area with dogs but find nothing except Andy's prison clothes, a bar of soap, and his rock hammer. It's revealed that while carving his name on the wall, Andy discovered how weak it was and began digging with the hammer, hiding his progress behind posters. He disposed of the debris by carrying it in his pockets and scattering it during yard time. The previous night, Andy swapped Norton's Bible with another one and took his shoes. He packed his belongings into a bag tied to his leg, crawled through the tunnel, and made his way into the sewer system. Using thunder to mask the noise, he broke a pipe and crawled through hundreds of yards of sewage before finally escaping. Now free, Andy visits Norton's bank and withdraws money using the false identity he created. He also sends documents exposing the corruption to the press. Soon after, Norton sees his name in a newspaper, exposing the prison's corruption while police sirens approach. He rushes to his safe and opens his Bible, discovering the hollowed section where Andy had hidden the hammer. As Byron is arrested, Norton refuses to face the same fate and takes his own life. A few days later, Red receives a postcard from Andy, hinting that he has successfully made it to Mexico. The following year, Red appears before the parole board once again. When asked if he has been rehabilitated, he responds that rehabilitated is just a meaningless word and that the man he used to be no longer exists. This time, they grant him parole, and after 40 years, Red is finally released. After leaving prison, Red is assigned a small apartment where he notices Brooks carving on the wall. He also gets a job at a grocery store, just like Brooks had. Over time, the routine begins to weigh heavily on him, and he even starts thinking about buying a gun. The only thing that stops him from ending his life is the promise he made to Andy. Remembering that promise, Red hitchhikes to Buxton. After a long walk, he finds the oak tree and the black volcanic rock. When he moves it, he discovers a box hidden underneath. Inside, there is money and a letter from Andy, inviting him to come to Mexico. Without hesitation, Red packs his things and boards a bus heading south. Eventually, he arrives at a beach in Mexico, where he reunites with Andy, finally finding freedom alongside his friend. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to catch all our upcoming movie summaries. See you soon!